Okay.
Right, I'll just tell you a little about the wooden mitre plane, because a lot of people don't get the hang of this mouth closure. The idea being, when the plane wears down, you can take this out, take a few shavings off the back, lower this bit and reshape and reclose the mouth. I'll just show you a picture of the inside of, this is a Varville and Summers and Varville plane, and it's got very nice proportions. So I'll try and get a decent photo inside there to show. Is it? You ready? This is just to show you how it should finish up at the bottom of the plane. That's as good as I can show you. Now I'll explain about it a bit. This is one I made, as you know, Daddy, but I've got a spare piece of wood to explain the bottom of the mouth closure. This piece of wood has to fit the plane snugly in its width. I've noticed on a lot of mitre planes made in this country, the bodies are always beech and the mouth closure is, generally speaking, boxwood. So there's variation in the movement. The original mitre planes had beech there, but it didn't wear so well, so they soon replaced it by boxwood. Now the idea is, this front face, facing this way, goes beyond the mouth. And then cuts back to form a tight mouth. And when the plane wears down, the back of the mouth becomes wider, so the iron sticks out more, and you want a tight mouth. So the idea is, you take shavings off of this side, knock it down, cut a little bit more off that eventually, and it closes the mouth up again. So you've always got an extremely fine mouth using this method. And it was only used on the mitre plane, the mouth closure, but I have seen the odd smoother and the odd jointer at a much later date being used on that type of plane instead, but it was designed for the mitre plane. Because they use contrasting timbers, I've noticed that very often on a really old mitre plane, like the one I showed you earlier, there's a slight bulge there. Not always, because the wood's giving it this, and it tends to bulge out. But there's got to be parallel. It's got to be a nice snug fit. And the angle of the taper is the bit that holds it in place. I don't think there's any set rule as to how thick this can be or what taper you put on. I've got a few degrees on there, but it wants to fit tight, front and back, but only a rub fit in the width. That's about that. Right, one thing I better point out, when I'm making a mitre plane in wood, I do it exactly the same method as a smoother. From this point here, from that point there to that point there, I chisel it out to the width of this bit here. This is how I do it, right the way down. There's different ways you can cut this out, but that's how I do it. And then I start to let that in the width by chiseling bits out there. But bear in mind, this cut here has to be altered at a later date when you've cut these two bits out here. Because when you've cut these bits out, you can then get a saw in there that goes in front of the mouth. You can't do it while the wood's in place. This particular plane has got a very narrow piece coming out the bottom, but that's up to your choice, you know. It's exactly the same principle as that. Anyway, when I've cut all that out, parallel to that, I've got to think about this, then I cut this width out, and then I think I do that, because this last cut is in front of the mouth, so you've got to have space to get your saw in. And when incidentally the two saw cuts that you have to do in here have to go through the mouth when it's that width I've already told you. And the first saw cut, the bed saw cut, goes more or less, it has to go through the mouth, so it's got to go more or less from there to there, and your next saw cut goes from wherever to inside the mouth again. You've just got room to do these two saw cuts. It's a tricky operation making one of these. It's not an easy job. It's, I don't know, 10 times harder than making a smoother. Sarah's just reminded me you can see pictures of how I do this on my website if you don't understand what I'm trying to tell you. I've just drawn the mouth closure, more or less, of this Summers and Varville plane to explain. Did have a bit more taper than that, it'd come down here somewhere. But then it's cut back, like I've showed you, to form a very fine mouth. Cut back like that. This line is in front of the mouth. And when you've got your saw cuts, that I've explained earlier on, going something like that, you've got a gap here now, so you can get your saw in to saw that line without going through the mouth. Okay.